Good day. In this session of ours, we are going to discuss Sanskrit in brain and Alzheimer's and the recent ad that has created ripples. We have Dr. Anil Sangli, neuro and spine surgeon, who will be discussing on Alzheimer's since this month is being designated as World Alzheimer's Month. And we have the 21st September as the World Alzheimer's Day. Doctor, I would like you to define or explain what is Alzheimer's.
Well, Alzheimer's, as everybody know, is the most common form of dementia. This is a general term for memory loss and other cognitive abilities which are lost. And this interferes in one's daily life, and it accounts for almost 60 to 80% of all the dementia cases the world over. It's one of the most common causes of dementia, and it's a progressive disease. And mind you, as of now, we do not have any treatment for Alzheimer's, and the only best treatment would be to prevent Alzheimer's or catch it young, and then try to prevent the progression of the symptoms which can worsen over a period of time. And during the early stages of Alzheimer's, patients can have a loss of memory which is very mild, and later on they can have a lot of problems with response to their ability to have a conversation, to respond to their environment, to do their normal daily activities, and over a period of time they get a lot of mood and behavioral changes. They can get disoriented, and over a period of time again they become very confused to various types of events with respect to orientation of time, place, persons. That is, they can even forget their own names in very severe cases. And another important thing that has been found is they can have a lot of problems with their own family and their friends and peers. They are found to have been having a lot of suspicious attitudes with respect to their very close relatives and friends. And this can cause a lot of problems in their, especially in their professions as well as in their families. And ultimately, in the later stages, they can have problems with difficulty in speaking, swallowing, and even walking also.
Doctor, can you assess that this person has got Alzheimer's, or to be very specific, are there any warning signs?
Well, there are about few signs which definitely tend to warn persons. One is the history of Alzheimer's in the family. A person having a memory loss which is very progressively increasing. He will keep something over somewhere and
A
then
key
forget,
or something like that.
key, whatever, some small things, and then forget about it totally. And the normal activities which he is able to perform daily over a period of time, he will not be able to perform. That is a familiar task which is normally doing every day. He will be having problems with that, and they can have progressive increase in development of language. Language and their expression of their language skills, etc. And their judgment is one thing which can get
Affected.
to a great extent. Especially in the earlier stages, you may not make out that there are some judgmental problems, but over a period of time, the judgmental capacity of the person decreases, and that's a very major handicap actually. And as I told you, misplacing things is very common. And they do not keep a track of events as to what's happening and how it happens, and which they normally would have done earlier. A person who is very adept at doing things and doing his daily activities in a particular core or a routine, he will not be able to do that, or he starts changing over a period of time.
Or he finds that he's getting slower. And
no, he not only becomes slow, that the way in which he does over a period of time
that also
changes.
changes. Okay.
And that will
That is the pattern of doing regular things.
doing his activities. Normally, each person will have their own way of doing certain things, and that is lost. And over a period of time, there will be a lot of behavioral changes among themselves. And another thing very important is the spatial orientation. Say, for example, they go outside for a walk and come back, and every day they do the same thing, and suddenly one fine day they go to the neighbor's house and ask for a cup of coffee, and
Thinking that it's
their
their
own
own
house.
Okay.
And that very commonly happens because the orientation, and they will they go to a particular place every day, or routinely go to some grocery and then pick up things and come back. When certain things, they go there and then they can't find their way back. They just keep wandering, and then they never return home, and then they give somebody at home gives a police complaint, and they'll be found somewhere in a railway station or somewhere.
Yeah.
And they asked about the address, they won't be able to tell. These are very common things which are in moderately advanced type of Alzheimer's disease. And another important thing is they try to get withdrawn from their society, withdrawn from the social activities which they do.
Doctor,
and their work
I
activities.
would like to interfere. Is this because that they know that they are not normal? That
No,
is, they withdraw from-
initially they will be able to understand and cognize that there is something wrong going on with them. But over a period of time, they don't understand that. That gets over at all. So that's what happens.
And does this mean that there is a change in the brain structure or something like that?
No, in the brain there are a lot of changes, in microscopic changes which happens, and that's not part for this discussion. But grossly, what I can tell you is there will be a lot of deposition of some abnormal protein called an amyloid type of a protein, which deposits in different areas of the brain, and that will cause some amount of problems with thinking, learning, cognition, etc. All these things are involved in the brain, and the most important thing is there is no treatment for this. You have to prevent it, or to prevent the progression of this particular disease.
Doctor, I would like to quote some of my own persons with whom we deal. We provide music therapy, that is therapeutic music, and we find that there are some positive aspects in that. Does music also help in Alzheimer's?
Music definitely helps in Alzheimer's, because music is one thing which is very, very important in everyday's life, and there is something very, very important and supernatural about music, because this involves each and every part of the brain. When you start listening to music, it is not only the auditory nerve through which the music goes into the auditory center into your brain. There are various cortical, subcortical, and the lower centers of the brain, which are simultaneously activated or activated in a sort of a progression.
Doctor, one thing, is it unique only to music?
It is unique only to music, because it depends on basically the type of music which you give, the type of rhythm which you use, the timbre, the melody, the lyrical content of the particular song which you are using. All these things matter. And in music, what happens is the lower parts of the brain, that is in the region of the midbrain, pons, medulla, these are the lower centers. Then they go into the hippocampus and to the limbic system, and then they go to the frontal lobes. Even if you meditate, both the frontal lobes can get excessive amount of blood supply, which can be seen on functional MRI studies. But in music, almost the whole of the brain can get activated. That is the most important thing. And what do you mean by getting activated? That means the neural centers and the pathways are opened up, and there is activation of the neural cells, the electrical activity improves, and depending on what exactly you want to do for the patient, whether you want to improve the memory, whether you want to improve the language skills, whether you want to improve the ability to move certain things,
And
speaking, language, movement, whatever it is, depending on what you need to do, you can trigger that particular group of neurons as a movement therapy or a rhythm therapy or a music therapy, along with these movements and rhythms. And for that, the excessive amount of activity in the brain is very clearly seen, and it is easily demonstrable in functional MRI studies.
So
also.
you think music therapy will also be helpful in dementia?
Yes, it definitely helps in dementia.
And if you give music along with lyrics, will there be any difference?
When a person listens to a particular tune, the tune itself will trigger certain type of activity. Like when you have, for example, you have listened to a song in your childhood, and you have never listened to that song later on again in your life, and ultimately after 10 or 20 or 30 years later, you listen to the same tune with something, then suddenly in everybody's mind, there will be some triggering point where you will think you have heard this tune somewhere and you are not getting it. And that will usually be related to some sort of an event, whether it is a sad event or a very happy event, etc. And that the mind usually correlates with that particular thing, because any tune is related to a memory point, and that is related to the limbic system, and that is related to the frontal lobe and the language centers. So when a tune comes in, along with the lyric, like how you asked me, if the lyrical content is extremely sad or extremely joyous or extremely sinister to that particular person to what he says, then there will be a relation between the lyrical content and the tune.
Okay.
If you are telling or giving music therapy with only the tune, it makes a different impression. And if you are doing it with the tune with a particular lyrical content, that also gives a different sort of a expression and a different sort of an impact on the brain.
Okay. And will it have long-term impact if you give music?
That depends on the person, that depends on how you give it. It requires a lot of persistence and perseverance. It is not just I just give a music therapy, I tell him to do something, he listens something, or he does music by himself, listens to, or he even plays on the music, then he'll be alright, he is done with. It doesn't happen like that. It is very, very, you have to be very persistent, you have to be very patient, especially with the patients, because the neural pathways will not develop over one day or 2 days. It depends on how much you give. For example, if you are attaining a new skill, for example, if a doctor has to do a microscopic surgery like a end-to-end anastomosis of a small blood vessel, we try to do it 100 times, 200 times on two empty hollow plastic tubes. Unless our brains get wired over these things, and then the finesse and the skill, all these things come up in your brain, then only you will be allowed to do a certain thing on the first on the cadavers, and then on live patients, especially under supervision. So these are all the things which develop over a period of time. Even if you have the skill, even if you know how it is to be done, you need to develop that skill. That developing of the skill will come only by repetition, by practice. The same thing holds good even in music. For a person who is having a problem, you have to bring him up to a certain level so that the neural wiring takes place, and then he's brought out of that pathetic situation to a normal situation, sort of a thing. It takes a lot of time, effort, perseverance, and the type of the therapist is extremely important. What you do to him, how you do to him, how you understand his problem, how you simultaneously take that problem to yourself, like you're empathizing with the patient, and then you are doing something. Then only it works.
Doctor, I've seen in patients that is who are provided with therapeutic music, if they're spiritually oriented, their grasp and concentration, even if the normal thing is that they are not like a normal person, even if it is that the thing that has been observed, we find that those who are spiritually oriented, their retention, learning, everything will be much faster. What is the relationship between spirituality, music, and is there any connection to Alzheimer's?
Spirituality is one thing which is a totally different ballgame. It is not religion. Being religious is different. Being spiritual is different. You may be an atheist, but you can be spiritual. A person who is believing in God, whichever God it is, he may be religious also and spiritual at the same time. So spirituality is a totally different thing which we'll deal later on. But being spiritual makes a lot of impact on the person. For example, especially not only in learning mundane tasks, getting new skills, learning new languages, etc. But it is also important when you are in trouble. When a person becomes very mentally handicapped in the form of fear, anxiety, depression, or any sort of an ailment in the mind where you can have a sort of when your mood comes down, it is then the spirituality comes in.
Probably it's a coping mechanism.
It is not only a coping mechanism, it is a mechanism in which you can actually sail through the thing with your own efforts. You need not get any effort from a psychiatrist or any other friend of yours if you are spiritual, because you have that mental capacity in yourself which you need to trigger it out. And that will help in improving. And especially in persons who are spiritual and who get into Alzheimer's later on, they would have had that or sort of a spiritual intonation in the mind, which is stored in one part of the brain, probably, which will not be affected by Alzheimer's. So if you tap that sort of a spiritual problem in a person who is having Alzheimer's, then coping with Alzheimer's would be very easy. For example, if a person who is having a difficulty in talking or difficulty in expressing, if he has got a stroke because of a infarct or a tumor or whatever, or blood supply which is abnormal in that area, this person who has a problem in talking will be able to sing normally. that we have seen in our
Sessions.
lot of sessions.
Yeah.
A person who has difficulty in putting out simple single words or making one small sentence with 3 or 4 words will be able to sing a whole paragraph without problems.
Yes.
And that is found in patients who are having dysphasias, expressive dysphasias. In such individuals, they are able to sing, they are able to put their words properly, articulate properly, put it in a proper sequence and sing it with a proper intonation also, and in a proper way, which it is where when the how original song is being sung. In such individuals, you are tapping the ability for them to articulate in a proper way, and that will help them overcome this disarticulation or difficulty in articulation. So that's exactly how spirituality helps in Alzheimer's.
Yeah, I think when we talk of rhythm and music and lyrics and Sanskrit, I think Sanskrit has got an inherent power of rhythm, lyric, everything embedded in it. If I say Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate, even if I'm not singing, if I'm just reciting or chanting the sloka as a sloka, it will be more rhythmic, like
Yes.
Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate. And or if I take Rango Tunga Taranga Mangala Karashri Tunga Bhadra Thata, this is a bit lyrical. Or if I take Ambara Ganga Chumbita Pada Padatala Vidalita Gu, I'm not singing, I'm just reciting, but even though it's a recitation, it's a type of rhythmic.
Like Sanskrit, how it is, it's one of the things which itself has got some amount of musical capacity in it.
Yeah.
The Sanskrit has imbibed music into it.
Yeah.
And like how you say the Saptaswaras, like
Sarigama Padani.
Padani,
No, even these are Sanskrit related.
these are Sanskrit words, and they also have a sort of a musical intonation in them without being externally imbibed into that.
Yeah.
And one more thing, what happens in Sanskrit is, like how you said, the words of the Sanskrit will definitely have an impact on the brain, unlike any other language. Whether it is Kannada, Hindi, English, or any of the Indian languages or foreign languages, just they're all one set apart, and Sanskrit is one set apart. Because Sanskrit, we don't know why, but it is an excellent language. It has got a flawless grammar, and the type of intonations which the Sanskrit words create in the mind of the person is something totally different from what happens with other languages. It has been found that. And the tone, the way in which it is spelt, the rhythm in which it is told, like how you said, you may not sing it, but the way in which it is said, like in a form of a poetry itself, will cause a lot of stimulation in the brain. And when you start doing that in childhood, and a child understands, like there are persons, children, who go for competitions learning by heart 700 slokas of the Bhagavad Gita.
Yes.
By heart.
Yeah.
And you, I will tell the audience now, you follow these children over a period of time when they are even up to 50, 60, 70, when few of them, well, God forbid, let them not, but if they develop any problems with memory, it will be easier for them to get back to the memory.
Yeah, I've seen in our own patients.
Especially who have learned Sanskrit, who are Sanskrit Pandits. It's been very easy for us to bring them back to normalcy. Compared to persons who do not know Sanskrit.
Yeah, that is because each letter and word has got a separate meaning within Sanskrit. So if I say something, even if it's a letter, we have seen in patients who are 90 plus, who could derive many meanings out of that, even though they were not responding to any other normal communications, that is in regional language. But if we gave them certain letter, like api cha, it means and also, they would give huge sermons actually while lying on the bed. So probably that's
basically because of the root words in Sanskrit. There are a lot of root words, almost up to 2000 root words in Paninian Sanskrit grammar. And from each root word you can derive multiple number of words, and you can derive new words also.
Yes.
And you can go up to 300
And I think
million
the same thing applies to Indian classical music. Indian classical music also has got its own rich treasure of lyrical meaning and content and the way you sing. For example, if I sing sa re ga re sa, you have a different intonation. Or if I change that sa ni za re sa ni za re 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 sa ni za sa.
These things will help a lot because you are going from one swara to another swara.
This is frequency.
Frequency of 2 swaras to next 2 swaras or 3 swaras. and then coming back, and then there are thousands and thousands of combinations and permutations in this. And when you're doing in those things in a particular way, then that will trigger the memory, that will trigger the pathways, and then it will definitely help Alzheimer's.
Okay, and if there is anything related to music, that is emotions, we tap the emotions. Can you just explain how music and emotions are related from a neuroscientific point of view?
See, Oliver Sacks, I remember, has done a lot of work on music. He says music and emotion are totally inseparable. It is not only a physiological and an anatomical stimulus to your brain, but it works for the whole person all the time, for the whole body and for the brain. Because music can evoke certain types of emotions in the brain, and that brings back your memory and then creates new memories. And that is because its relation to the, like how I said, from the subcortical structures through the limbic system and the frontal lobes of the brain. That's how it helps.
Yeah. And if I talk of Sanskrit, coming back to Sanskrit, there are various palindromes that are available in Sanskrit. Probably that would also be helpful, Alzheimer's.
What's a palindrome?
Palindrome is any sentence, a word, or verb, whether you read from left or right or left, you get the same word repeating. Like you have Nayana. So whether you read from left to right,
it is Nayana.
Yeah. And you have Slokas and a lot of granthas in this, wherein if you read from the left to the right, you have one, for example, you are relating it to Ramayana. And if you read from right to left, the same thing, it is repetition of the same sloka from the right to left. It gives a relation to Mahabharata or something like that. So I think these are just like our riddles and puzzles with a purpose, a spiritual purpose, that may also help in coping up with Alzheimer's.
Right, I think this is a very important thing, because when you're talking of these palindromes, like how you said na ya na, it's the same, and you said from top to bottom or from in a crossword manner, and the meaning also differs. So in a person who is trying to understand a sloka from left to right, he will learn Ramayana, and if he is trying to decipher something from right to left, he will learn Mahabharata.
I'll just quote a shloka. This is from Raghava Yadaviyam. It's just around 30 slokas or something like that. I'll tell the first sloka. Vandeham devam tam shritam rantaram kalam bhasa yaha. Ramo ramadirapyago lila mara yodhye base. So this is first sloka. If I just go from the, this is of 2 lines. So I'll start with the second line, right to left. So it will be
the end of that line to the
first letter when I started. So it will be Sevadhyeyo Ramalali Gopyaradi Mara Mora Yasa Bhalankaram Taram Tam Shritam Vandeham Devam. So it ends with Devam. The first sloka I started was Vande. So Devam is, if you read from the right to left, it is Vande. So the first sloka which I recited from left to right is related to Ramayana, and the second time I repeated from the right bottom towards the left top, it is related to Mahabharata, and more often it's related to Krishna, Yadaviyam. Okay, so and if I can quote another one, this is a small table, I think, which we can see on the screen. It is Deva Kanini Kavade Vahika Swaswakahiva Kaka Re Bhavare Kaka Niswa Bhavya Vyakaswani. So this is one shloka, and this contains the letters which you can arrange in a 64 tabled what do you call
8 by 8
8 by 8 square type table. And if you read from the left to the right, top to bottom on the right side, top to bottom on the left side,
the same thing.
And if you read from the right to the left or at the bottom, or from the bottom left to the top left, or bottom right to the top right, you get the same thing repeating. So this is one of the more things.
It requires a lot of mental effort and knowledge and your orientation of these skills.
See, these are all,
such a table.
these are plug-in.
Understand it.
These are plug-in-play Sanskrit slokas. And if you do riddles and puzzles, yes, there are certain benefits that one can achieve. But here you are going into the meanings of the words also. For example, if I say da, vandeham. So one day, it means you have the word da also here. If I just take the word da, it also means da, to give. It is prada, one who gives, a varaprada. God is known as
So
varaprada.
this da is the root word, and
Yeah.
with this root word of da, either suffixing it or prefixing
You
with
get different
so
things.
many words or
Yeah.
letters,
Yeah.
you can get different meanings of different words.
Yeah. So now I'll take one example, dana. Dana is a word that is derived from the root da. Da means to give. So if I say da and dana, it means that there is a certain procedure wherein you're giving something to some other person and you're extinguishing your right over that. That is known as dana. And dana also means rituals. Dana is not only the act of giving, but it also consists of rituals. Like we have go dana. That means you're donating a cow. You say bhu dana. You're donating the land. Hiranya dana. You're donating gold. And there are categories of danas. For example, if I say dana, it means that I have a thing with me, a material, and I'm giving to some other person. I'm the donor, and the other person is the donee, and I will not have any right over that further.
That means you dispossess your
Right.
over
title.
that particular
Yeah.
property.
Yeah.
Or whether
And
it's-
make him the.
and you give it to him so that he
He'll be
becomes
the owner.
you are gifting it like.
Yeah, he's the owner.
So you do not have any say over that particular
That is
property.
one form
Type
of
of
dana.
dana.
The other type of dana is, for example, if I give go dana, my commodity was here, that is the go. It's not the commodity, but for purpose of understanding that as a wealth, I am giving my wealth to the other person.
Okay.
And I have also a wealth known as jnana, that is knowledge. So I also, and it is derived from avidya. So vidya and jnana dana also is a dana. But in this case, what happens is, if I teach some person, if I teach a disciple or some other person that
You're
imparting
your
knowledge,
knowledge to
knowledge to some other person, it not only is taken by the other person, it also increases within me.
Your knowledge also improves.
Increases.
Correct.
So,
So
this
that means,
dana is
that
totally
means
different.
you're not dispossessed of your knowledge.
Yeah.
It actually increases your knowledge.
It's like the what we call as Deepa Dana. Deepa is the light. So when I light a lamp and I light another lamp and I light another further more such lamps, the original
With
one,
one lamp you're lighting thousands of
the
them.
first lamp will not extinguish or its brightness will not decrease, or it will not lose its sheen or whatever it is. And in the same manner, or medically, if I want to tell you, we have different types of dana. In the medical point, we have heart dana. We say the heart is
That's
transplanted.
when a person dies, he will donate all his organs.
Organs. That is, they have
It's
to take
organ
the
donation.
and if he would have given his permission when he was alive,
Yes.
and that would be taken care of by his family members or something. We say netradan. Netradan means your whatever it is, whether it's cadver or something, you're cutting off that portion
Part and
and
then
giving it to some other person, and we say that this person is seeing through the person who
of
is
the-
alive. But if you do raktadan, you're foregoing your rakta. But does it not replenish within you?
It will.
It will. So in the same manner, we have a recent ad in which Kanyadaan is taken in a negative manner.
Oh,
So Kanya is the bride. Dana means it is being treated in that ad as a commodity. It's not like that.
Kanya is not a commodity.
She is a living being, just like we do Godana. And for those people who do not understand the concept of Hinduism's dana, we have Yatra Dana. Do you know? Have you heard of this?
No.
Yatra Dana means, for example, assume that a mother has vowed in her younger days that if she begets a son, or if she begets a girl, or if she begets a good child, she will climb the steps of Tirumala and Tirupati hills.
Okay.
And due to her engagements or whatever reasons, she is now 60 or 64 or 65, something like that, and she has not
Completed that
vow. So what can be done? In this case, since she is old and she can't do on her own, she tells her son or daughter that if you can do this and provide to me when I'm alive.
Like the sons perform that activity.
And they give the dana of that punya
Okay.
to the mother. It is as though the mother herself has claimed as per her oath.
So it will be mother is supposed to do something, she
Yeah.
can't do it,
Yeah.
and the son does it for her,
Yeah.
and
He-
he begets all that punya and
he
then gives it
gives
back to the
dana.
mother. That
Yeah.
is dana of the
Dana of the yatra.
okay.
Yatra means the pilgrimage.
Okay, okay.
So it means that there are different types of danas, and one of the most important aspect in this ad, the recent Manyavar ad, is that Kanyadaan is taken as Kanyaman. It means that we are giving Sanman, Samman, whatever it is. Man means if you take only that aspect of Samman, it means you are giving respect. Man also means measuring. So if you say Kanya Man, it means you are measuring a Kanya or a bride. Means we have the Tula Bhara, which means a person will sit on the one side of the scale, that is the measuring scale, and the commodity, like it may be coconuts or it may be gold, it may be even jaggery, that will be offered to the god. It means that I'm offering myself to the god in the form of this. So you're substituting yourself to some other commodity.
Your weight will be equated to that commodity,
Yeah.
and it will be offered
Yeah.
to God.
So in the same manner, Kanyadaan means, are you measuring a bride through her whatever she brings?
The commodity or the dowry which she brings.
Dowry she brings. So man is also means measuring thing.
Yeah.
That's why we have Iman, which goes V means it's just like the
Against
Garuda.
that.
So it's very fast, something like that. And we have a Praman. Praman means if you have something, it's evidence in the normal parlance. So you have a standard and you're comparing with the other one. The first one is known as the Praman. So you're taking that as an evidence. Man also means evidence. So there are different forms and meanings of Sanskrit. In this, Man means, we can also say that what dowry is this girl bringing, or what apparel is she wearing from Manyavar? Because probably their intention may be good, Kanya Man, and immediately you link it to Manyavar. So that probably that may be a good intention with that. But you can also use
but
your
it should
brains.
not be at the expense of the
ridiculing and distorting
the meaning of this.
Yeah, because you are not studied under Gurukula system. You do not know the meaning of Sanskrit, and without knowing Sanskrit, you cannot criticize or dismantle Hinduism and Hindutva. For that, you require brains. Okay, if you don't want Alzheimer's, you also require brains. So in this case, Kanyaman means I'll give a meaning that whatever Kanya brings as commodity with her, which means dowry. Okay, even if you take that, Manyavar means, in our Indian tradition, we have Var and Vadu concept. Var is the bridegroom and Vadu is the bride. So Manyavar means it's only Samman to the groom and not the bride. The very brand name Manyavar means
they
that
could have made it Manyavadu.
Yeah, but they have not done that. So Manyavar means Sanman only to the groom, and which goes against the very ad which says that Kanya is a man. So you should not play with Sanskrit words, or even if you, in this discussion, we are connected with Sanskrit brain and Alzheimer's. People who are actively engaged through the brains. For example, it's Man not only as per the advertisement. Here, Man also means measurement. So my thinking or thought process will also explore certain other things, which makes my mind and brain active. Probably that may also help reduce the Alzheimer's. And if you take another Dan, for example, I'll just quote this. Any person seeing any film, he goes to a theater or he views on his mobile or laptop, he'll donate his Tanu, Mana and Dhana. Tanu means his body, because he should be present, he has to sit and see, or he has to use his eyes, and Mana, he has to see and understand and form an opinion about that. Dhan, he has to put in his money. So if Dan is bad, I am providing my Tanu, Mana and Dhana to that person who has created the film. So if Dan is bad, then I should not view any films.
And moreover, Kanyadaan was not made as a commodity for the girl is a commodity, she's taken away and thrown off into the sun. It's not like that.
Yes.
She also belongs to the parents' family.
She comes
and
back.
She also belongs to the husband's family. She now belongs to two families. She is supporting two families.
Yeah. That's the integration of two families.
She is given a greater responsibility than the bridegroom.
No, even if you take, say, Godan, it's known that Go is revered very much in Hindu tradition. So if I am giving Godan, it doesn't mean it is treated as a commodity, because even for Lakshmi, who is the goddess of wealth, we call Dhana Lakshmi. It doesn't mean that it's only the money. And it has been corrupted because we have different type of Lakshmis, Ashtalakshmi we say, wherein Dhanalakshmi, Dhanya Lakshmi, even our food and other things will also be considered as well.
Every
It is all
commodity
Lakshmi.
what we see is considered in the form of a god, in
Yeah.
the form of Lakshmi,
Yeah.
because we revere it.
And even we have Annalakshmi, a very famous restaurant in Chennai and other places. Annalakshmi. That means even the food we eat is Lakshmi, it's wealth. So does it mean that I'm eating wealth? No. So
It's not to hurt anybody's intention. It's basically to make them know that there should be some sort of
that is learning.
a capacity to understand what exactly.
Yeah. And I think Sanskrit has got this capacity, and probably if people are engaged in positive, constructive that is using the terminologies or meanings of Sanskrit, that might also be helpful in reducing the Alzheimer's and other things, because we have seen in our patients. Isn't it true?
That's true.
Okay, so we are ending this session with these things, and thank you, doctor, for highlighting on Alzheimer's. And are there any other things which persons with Alzheimer's can do to reduce, or if they feel that there is something that I'm missing, I'm losing my memory or something like that? Are there any exercises or something like that?
There are a lot of mental stimulation exercises which are not only for Alzheimer's, for all the persons, especially youngsters who are going to school, to colleges, to help them memorize certain things, to keep it from the short-term memory to the long-term memory, and how it will be done, and all those things, and the various tips and tricks we shall discuss very shortly.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you,
doctor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.